All right, so let's do a deep dive into something I think we can all agree affects us all. Fed Chair Powell's recent speech.
Yeah.
We've got his words fresh off the press from the January 29th FOMC meeting.
Mm.
And trust me, we're going to break down the complex stuff
Yeah.
and figure out, what it means for your everyday life,
Course,
your
yeah.
wallet, all that stuff.
This is a big one. This
Yeah.
speech is really important. It basically sets the tone
Hmm.
for the Fed's direction on interest rates,
Right.
which, as you know, have this ripple effect
Yeah.
on pretty much everything in our financial lives.
Absolutely. And to kind of guide us through this deep dive,
Yeah.
we've sort of pinpointed three major points from Powell's speech that I think could have a real impact on you, the listener. Ready to unpack them.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, so first up.
First up, the Fed is holding interest rates steady for now.
Okay.
They've already lowered them a full percentage point, and it seems like they're seeing some positive movement in the economy. They want to let things settle a bit.
So if the Fed is kind of hitting the brakes on rate cuts,
Yeah.
does that mean we're stuck with these high loan costs for a while?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
This pause could actually indicate that we're heading into a period of stability, which can be a good thing
Okay.
for planning things, like if you're thinking about making a major purchase. Steady economic ship, usually easier to steer.
Okay, so no sudden movements.
No sudden movement.
What's the second big takeaway?
Second big takeaway, Powell emphasized that inflation is cooling down,
Okay.
which is good news,
That is good news.
but it's not quite at their target rate of 2% yet.
Right.
He stressed that they're committed to getting inflation down sustainably, so it's not a quick fix.
Got it. So slow and steady wins the race, as they say.
Yeah.
But if inflation is cooling, why are prices at the grocery store still making me cringe?
Yeah, well, that's where the details get interesting. While the overall inflation rate is at 2.6%, the core PCE, or personal consumption expenditures, which excludes volatile categories like food and energy, is sitting at 2.8%. So the prices of the things we buy regularly are still going up.
Okay, I'm starting to understand why my grocery bill is still a pain point.
Yeah.
So inflation is cooling, but not in all areas. What's the third key takeaway?
All right, the labor market.
Okay.
Powell consistently described the job market as solid.
What?
Unemployment is holding steady at a low 4.1%,
This guy.
but we are seeing a slowdown in hiring.
So it's a mixed bag on the job front.
Mm.
What does this mean for people looking for a job or thinking about switching careers?
Well, it means it's still a good time to be looking for a job,
Okay.
but you might have to put in a little more effort. It's not a sit back and wait situation.
Got it. So polish up those resumes.
Yeah.
Get networking.
Get out there.
Okay. We've covered those three main points. But let's dive a little deeper into some specifics from Powell's speech
Okay.
to, get a better grasp on the Fed's thinking. What should we look at first?
Let's focus on the section where Powell analyzes the risks the Fed is facing.
Okay.
He talked about finding this balance
Mm-hmm.
between acting too quickly, which could hurt the progress they've made on inflation,
Right.
and acting too slowly, which could potentially weaken the economy.
So it's like walking a tightrope. One wrong step
Yeah.
could send things tumbling.
Exactly. They're trying to be cautious and find that sweet spot so they don't overreact on either side. They're really trying to be super careful not to spook the markets.
Okay, so no sudden moves. But how does this careful balancing act play out in the real world for, people like you and me?
So let's say you're thinking about buying a house.
Okay.
The Fed's cautious approach might actually be a good sign for you
Okay.
because it suggests a more stable economic environment,
Right.
which is what you want if you're about to make a big financial commitment.
Yeah. Right. Stability makes planning a whole lot easier.
Absolutely.
All right, what's another area of Powell's speech that we should dissect?
Let's dig into the section on inflation and the labor market.
Okay.
There's a lot to unpack there, especially when it comes to how these two factors are intertwined.
Yeah.
Powell discussed the jobs to workers gap. Basically, it's the difference between the number of available jobs
Okay.
and the number of people looking for work.
Okay, so if there are a lot of jobs but not enough people to fill them, that means the gap is big, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And a large gap can push wages up as companies compete for workers,
Mhm.
which can then contribute to inflation.
Right, right.
Powell noted that this gap has narrowed recently,
Okay.
which could be a sign that some of those inflationary pressures are easing.
So a smaller gap is good news for fighting inflation.
It can be, but it's not the whole story.
Oh,
Powell also highlighted that while the unemployment rate is low, hiring has slowed. This suggests a bit of a cooling in the labor market, which might reflect a broader economic slowdown.
so it's like this puzzle with all these interconnected pieces.
Yeah.
The job market affects inflation, inflation affects interest rates,
It's all connected.
and so on and so forth.
Precisely. And the Fed is trying to manage all of these moving parts
Right.
to keep the economy on a stable path.
This is fascinating stuff, but I can see how it can easily get overwhelming.
Mm.
So let's make sure we connect all of these dots back to our listener. In the next part, let's translate all of this Fed speak into actionable takeaways.
Okay.
What can people actually do
Yeah,
with this information?
that's a great idea. We'll take all of these insights and figure out how they can be applied to your everyday financial decisions. Stay tuned.
All right, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. And we just unpacked, the major points from Fed Chair Powell's speech.
Yeah.
And now it's time to figure out, what you can actually do
Right.
with all of this information.
That's right. We've got to translate this Fed speak
Yeah.
into something actionable.
Exactly. So let's start with interest rates.
Okay.
They're on hold for now, but Powell made it clear that, the Fed's decisions are data dependent.
Right.
What does that actually mean for us?
It means things can change.
Okay.
It's like watching a weather forecast.
Yeah.
You might see sunshine predicted,
Right.
but you still keep an umbrella handy just in case.
Yeah.
The Fed is constantly monitoring
Right.
the economic climate and will adjust course if needed.
Okay. So we need to stay informed and be ready to adapt.
Yeah.
What are some practical steps people can take to stay on top of things?
Well, you don't have to become an economics guru overnight.
Right.
Start by checking in with reliable financial news sources regularly.
Okay.
The Fed's website is actually a great resource,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually do a pretty good job of explaining things in plain English.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Bookmarking the Fed's website.
definitely. Think about your own financial goals.
Okay.
Are you eyeing a big purchase, like a car or a house?
Right.
If so, remember that while interest rates are stable right now, they could rise in the future.
Okay.
Factor that possibility into your budget.
So don't assume things will stay the same forever.
Don't assume.
What if you're thinking about refinancing your mortgage?
That's a perfect example.
Okay.
Refinancing at a lower rate can save you a bundle.
Mm-hmm.
But if rates go up, you might miss your chance.
Right.
Timing is key, and it's always wise to weigh the potential risks and rewards.
Got it. So stay informed,
Stay informed.
factor in potential rate changes,
Mm-hmm.
and, if you're feeling lost, don't hesitate to reach out to a financial expert.
Definitely.
Okay. Now let's zoom out a bit.
Yep.
Powell spent a lot of time talking about the Fed's commitment to its dual mandate,
Right.
maximum employment,
Mm.
and stable prices.
Yep.
Can they really achieve both at the same time?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Some economists argue that those goals are inherently in conflict, while others believe it's possible to find a balance.
It's a debate that's been going on for decades.
So is it like trying to juggle two chainsaws? Seems pretty risky.
Well, those who believe in the trade-off
Mhm.
argue that policies designed to boost employment can sometimes lead to higher inflation.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
If everyone has a job and is earning money,
Right?
demand for goods and services goes up,
Mm-hmm.
which can push prices higher.
Right.
On the flip side, measures to control inflation,
Okay.
like raising interest rates, can slow down economic growth
Mm-hmm.
and potentially lead to job losses.
Okay, I'm seeing the tension here.
Yeah.
What about the arguments FOR achieving both goals? Is there any hope?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Some economists point to factors like technological advancements
Mm-hmm.
and increased productivity as evidence that we can achieve both economic growth and job creation
Right.
without necessarily triggering inflation.
So it's not a guaranteed win,
Right.
but it's not impossible either. It sounds like the Fed is trying to thread a very fine needle here. Exactly. And remember, it's not just about hitting a specific number for unemployment or
Yeah.
inflation.
Right.
It's about creating a stable and sustainable economic environment that benefits everyone.
This is getting pretty deep.
Yeah.
But I think it highlights how important it is for all of us to be informed citizens.
Yeah.
The economy isn't this abstract concept. It affects all of us
Right.
in very real ways.
Couldn't agree more. The more we understand how the economy works, the better equipped we are to navigate the ups and downs.
All right, so we've talked about staying informed,
Statement.
factoring in potential rate changes,
Right.
understanding the Fed's balancing act. What's the final takeaway for our listeners?
The key message is this.
Okay.
The economy is a constantly changing system.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of it.
Okay.
Engage with it. Learn about it.
It's like a giant puzzle,
Yeah.
but the pieces are always shifting.
Yeah.
And the more we understand how those pieces fit together, the better prepared we are to handle whatever comes our way.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Staying informed, making informed decisions, and participating in these crucial conversations are all part of building a more stable and prosperous economy for everyone.
Excellent point. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Right.
Based on something Powell mentioned about the Fed's ongoing review
Okay.
of its monetary policy framework.
Oh, interesting. He did say they were open to new ideas and feedback?
Yes.
Yeah.
It seems like they're not just stuck in their old ways. They're actually looking for ways to improve and adapt to this, ever-changing economic landscape.
Yeah.
What does this review process actually involve?
Yeah.
And can regular people actually get involved?
It's a fascinating process, actually.
Okay.
Every 5 years, the Fed conducts a comprehensive review of its monetary policy framework.
Right.
They gather input from all sorts of people, economists, academics, policymakers, and even the general public.
So it's not just a bunch of economists making decisions in a vacuum. They're actually reaching out to real people for feedback.
Exactly. It's all about transparency and accountability. They want to make sure their policies are truly serving the needs of the American people.
That's awesome. How can our listeners get involved in this process? I bet they have some great ideas.
There are actually a few ways.
Okay.
The Fed holds public events called Fed Listens,
Okay.
where they gather feedback from communities across the country.
Cool.
They also host a research conference where experts present their findings and discuss monetary policy.
So mark your calendars, everyone. Attend a Fed Listens event, check out the research conference, and make your voice heard.
Make your voice heard.
Your insights could actually shape the future of monetary policy.
Absolutely. It's a great opportunity to engage in a meaningful dialogue about the economy and contribute to shaping policies that affect us all.
Okay, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive. We've broken down Powell's speech, explored the Fed's balancing act, and even figured out how to translate all of this into actionable steps.
Right.
What's the final takeaway for our listeners today?
The economy is a complex system, but it's one we can all understand and influence. Stay curious, stay engaged, and never stop asking questions.
Love it. Okay. We're just about out of time for this deep dive.
Right.
But before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought-provoking question.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked about the Fed's dual mandate of maximum employment and stable prices.
Right.
But what does maximum employment actually mean in a world where technology is constantly changing the job landscape?
That is a profound question.
Yeah.
It's one that policymakers and economists are wrestling with right now.
Yeah.
As technology continues to evolve, we need to redefine what maximum employment looks like in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's not just about the number of jobs, but also the quality of those jobs.
Yeah.
The skills they require and the opportunities they provide.
You're right. It's not just about having a job. It's about having a job that's fulfilling, sustainable, and offers a path to a better future.
Exactly. And that's a conversation we need to have as a society. What kind of future do we want?
Yeah.
And what role does work play in that future?
That's something to think about.
Yeah.
It's not just about the numbers, but about the people behind those
The
numbers
human element.
and the kind of world we want to build together. So keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
And keep engaging in these crucial conversations.
Well said.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive
into
Fed Chair Powell's speech. We hope you found it insightful.
Yeah.
And dare I say, even a little bit enjoyable.
I hope so.
We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration of the forces shaping our world.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time.
It really is, It makes you realize that economics isn't just about charts and graphs and numbers. It's about people's lives and hopes and dreams.
Absolutely. And Powell actually kind of touched on that human element in his speech. He repeatedly emphasized the Fed's dedication to serving the American people, and acknowledge the real-world impact of their decisions on families, businesses, and communities.
Yeah. It's encouraging to hear that level of empathy from a Fed chair.
Yeah.
It shows that they're not just making decisions in a vacuum and that they understand those decisions have consequences for real people.
Yeah, definitely. I think it highlights the importance of transparency and communication from the Fed.
Mm-hmm.
They can't just operate behind closed doors and expect people to blindly trust their decisions.
Right.
They need to explain their rationale, be open to feedback, and engage in a genuine dialogue with the public.
Right, and Powell seems to get that. He talked about the importance of the Fed's outreach programs. Like those Fed Listens events we discussed earlier. It shows that they're making an effort to hear directly from everyday Americans and incorporate those perspectives into their policy decisions.
Yeah, that's a positive step, I think. It suggests that the Fed is becoming more responsive to the needs of the people they serve and evolving their approach.
And it's also a reminder that we, as citizens, have a role to play in shaping economic policy.
Right, absolutely.
We can't just sit back and expect the Fed to solve all of our problems.
Right.
We need to be informed, we need to be engaged, and we need to be vocal about the issues that matter to us.
I completely agree. It's about taking ownership and participating in shaping the economic landscape.
Okay, so let's circle back to that final thought-provoking question we posed earlier. How do we redefine maximum employment in this era of rapid technological advancement and automation? It's a tough question, but one that we need to address if we want to create a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
It's a challenge that demands creative and collaborative solutions. We need to invest in education and training that equips workers with the skills they need for the jobs of tomorrow, not the jobs of yesterday.
Right.
We need to foster innovation and entrepreneurship that creates new opportunities and avenues for growth and employment. And we need to have honest conversations about the role of work in our society and how we can ensure everyone benefits from these technological changes, not just a select few.
That's a big task, but I have to believe we can rise to the occasion. I mean, we've overcome difficult economic times in the past, and we can do it again. But it requires us to work together, stay informed, and never be afraid to question the status quo.
That's a great way to put it. We need to be proactive and willing to adapt to the changing dynamics of the world around us.
And on that note of embracing change and staying engaged, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
We covered a lot of ground today, from dissecting Powell's speech to exploring the Fed's balancing act to even, considering the future of work itself.
It was a comprehensive exploration. And remember, the economy is a complex system, but it's one we can all learn to understand and navigate. Stay curious, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
I love that. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it valuable and maybe even a little bit fun. We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration of the forces shaping our world.